What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to the channel. So today, jumping into this Marvel Future Fight content that we were basically gifted over the holidays. So the seasonal uniforms are basically here. They're 40% off for any of the winter seasonal uniforms. So if you're missing out on any of them, then you can go grab them. The two that we have in store for us today is basically Phil Coulson's Tier 3 and his uniform, and then we get Rogue. For the focus of this video, I'm just going to talk about Phil Coulson. So whether or not you should buy him. Now, it is a seasonal uniform. Rogue is also in there as a seasonal uniform as well, and you know the way this one works. Essentially, she's going to be paywalled behind the store, and we'll get some tokens that basically go to contributing for her uniform overall, and you'll be able to get those. So if you were to go inside the uniform selection shop, you can see here it's these special little crystals, and you basically need to use the 2023 holiday tokens that you can get. I don't have enough of them. Essentially, you're going to get 10, and then you probably really has to go to the store, and you're going to end up having to purchase some pack of some sort inside of here for those crystals. So essentially, it's going to be about $20-$30 for you to basically get Rogue. Usually, the best option for you to purchase that character pack for her is going to be something like the do they even have it in here this time? I don't even see it in here. Normally, it's they usually have like a chest for, well, where is it? Maybe, yeah, okay, so it's the Phil Coulson's holiday chest is basically it. And so you can purchase like 2 of these, get your 20 crystals, and then move on and pass that. And then when you get the 10 crystals that the 10 tokens that they give you, then you can purchase the Rogue pack inside there. And that's essentially what you're looking at in order to get Rogue. Overall, I think is a really good looking uniform for Rogue. Very nice, detail and, design on the uniform overall. And I'll get to that one when I get around to purchasing her. I am trying to be a low spender, free to play going now. So I don't really, I'm not really just going to purchase the uniform for $30, especially at current. Like, I got to figure out whether or not Rogue is worth leveling up in terms of T3 material. Now, if you were to just go based on that she is a speed type character going over to teams, if you were just to do it based on speed type characters who are superheroes, who are mutants, you end up with a very short list. And it's even a very shorter list when you look at females, because you basically only have 3 females and about 4 males in there. When you look at it as just all species of speed type superheroes, and then you break that down into females, she was one of those characters that I said potentially was going to get tier 4, and you would have to compare that to some of the likes of the characters that were already in there, like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I don't know why I said that. Kamala Khan, or some of the other characters in there. Now, I think Rogue sits pretty, nice and pretty inside of this, because she has a special, space inside of here in terms of being a mutant who is a tier 4. So she has value there, unless they choose to change Kamala at some point to being a mutant. But coming behind these characters, you basically have these 2 in the T4 roles that could basically supplant Rogue in there. But I think this is a good uniform, because I think and it's a good T4, because there's a lot of people who are going to have very interest inside Rogue. Not to mention, like I said, they did a very good job with her uniform. So that's what it is. Now, when we look at Phil Coulson, on the other hand, right, and so we look at Phil Coulson, he costs you 1,800 crystals, like 1,750 crystals for this uniform. And let's take a look at his skills. So the main change here is that his director's orders passive, which was applied to all allies, is now applied to all allies instead of just superhero allies. And then you can look at his support, which only applies to himself, right? So overall, like, if I was to look at the character kit, let's go inside here and find my man Coulson team. And then when you go here, we'll go get out of these guys. We'll go blast superhero. So Coulson should be in here. Here we go. And you can basically look at his former kit where you had director's orders and was just superheroes allies. That was what it was. The director's shield. You can see that the kit was pretty bare bones in terms of what it had to offer, and there's still not a whole lot there to add. His leadership realistically wasn't even all that to write home about because it's a decreased skill cooldown. So essentially all Coulson was providing you was this passive support inside of here of the guaranteed crit rate and the supervillain faction and superhero faction. So now with the uniform that you basically get for Winter Ops, you essentially get the character inside of here, and he basically just has the director's order. That's it. It's just the same thing with a slight uptick in bonus of about 5%. And then if you go down and you look at the character overall, it's not a whole lot that's like happening on this character kit, like barrier, you know, snowy rampage. He doesn't even have like a like for real, he doesn't even have like an accumulation on his skill kit. Now I'm going to give them credit in the fact that the VFX are very good in terms of what they are looking like. It's definitely holiday themed with the cannon, and then you essentially have the you know, the snowballs and the fallings of this and everything, and it looks like it does some pretty substantial damage overall. Like, no complaints there necessarily about the character. Like I said, he looks good, and then he gets his tier 3 as well, which, you know, okay, like I'm like, it's cool, but I think there's far more impressive tier 3s. And the problem that I specifically have with Phil Coulson is that his character kit, it's not a lot to write home about, in my opinion, and it's not even a lot to write home about, and he's a tier 3. Like, we'll get to that in a second. So we got a simple, easy skill rotation as well inside here: 3, 5, 4, slight delay cancel on the 5, and then you go 3, 5, 4, and then 6. So you can see as the 3, slight delay, then the 4, and then directly into 6. And he does some pretty substantial hit damage inside there, so you really can't complain overall. Like, it's good damage. I think a lot of the characters might end up moving out of those last 2 hits though. So Coulson sits in a little bit different wheelhouse, because I think Rogue has inherent value because she's getting her tier 4. So I think there's some value inside of there. However, I think that like Phil is sitting at a tier 3, and I don't think there's much value in it, especially when you're basically paying $1,800 for a holiday themed VFX, and, you know, and a tier 3. Like, it's a tier 3. There's not a whole lot of meat behind him as a support character, and that's basically, you'd be paying $1,800 for support character. So it's not like I could sell you in your interest, as if you're a free-to-play player and you're holding on to 1,800 crystals, that this is a good uniform purchase for you. It just isn't. Like, there's no way for me to justify it, and I'll get to that in a second. These are some of the other uniforms that are basically in the shop, some of them that I've just basically passed by on. You know, Holiday Groot was one of them that I passed by on for the same reason. Like, it just didn't have a whole lot of value on it. So let's take a look at this team anyways inside here. So we got Phil Coulson. He is a blast, excuse me, he is a blast type superhero. So you basically get these blast type superheroes are all in the mix for basically, you know, like, that's the characters, that's the character pool of Blast. It's a deep roster. And so what we get with Phil is essentially just an upgrade for him to basically be able to be a support type character. Now, are there going to be support type days where you need to have Phil basically come in and, you know, be a support type character for your Blast type character? Sure, 100%. 1,800 crystals worth, I just don't see it. Like, I mean, I cannot imagine for the life of me picking up Phil just so that way, you know, he can basically provide me a leadership buff or support buff in terms of just like supervillain, superhero damage. Like, it's just not enough. I don't see why they did this. Like, for the life of me, it is such a plain, boring kit. You know, outside of the VFX squad, great job, but who over at Marvel Future Fight development team is making these decisions? I'm still looking at a roster of characters inside of here, for instance, coming up the back that, you know, you could potentially see and that you would hope to see in terms of, like, you know, Kid Omega would be a nice thing that we would basically get. Wiccan, I think he already has his Transcendence. No, he doesn't. I thought he had his Kid, you know, because could be Avengers. I mean, we got Lincoln that just got his update, but that was shit on. So it's just like weird to basically look at Phil as a reason to pick up this uniform for 1,800 crystals for what he was. Like, I just don't see it. Like, I mean, I would have rather had Quake come in and they gave us a T3 and put that on Quake to be a support character, or somebody like Lincoln instead of it being Phil Coulson, who basically just got a T3 and that was it. I mean, I don't know who did that, who determined this, but if I'm being honest with you, I don't care what it is that you find for Phil Coulson. 1,800 crystals for this holiday uniform for a T3 when I've got T4s out the wazoo that are basically in the game. Like, what we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just sitting there that I haven't leveled, 7, 8 that I haven't even touched in terms of getting there. Like, that's what I mean by this. 9, 10, you know, more behind there. I just don't see it. And then the potentiality for a whole lot more characters who will eclipse him in short order. I don't see why I would tell a beginner or I would tell a free-to-play player to purchase a Phil Coulson uniform. I could not fathom any justification for that. The Rogue uniform is a whole lot easier to justify. Like, if you were to look at Rogue's uniform, like I said already, easy to justify. A lot of players are going to be fans of the character. I don't even think there's probably that many AOT fans that are left in the game that's probably still playing this game in order to try to justify this. But you could justify Rogue's uniform. T4 character, you know, hey, do you need a speed mutant on your roster? Yeah, you probably do. Like, I mean, like I said, there's only 3 of them. So could you justify Rogue's uniform and paying that $20? That's essentially what I'm looking at across there. So I just can't, for the life of me, I can't justify Phil. I really can't justify Phil, and it's hurting me to do this. So let's take a look at what his uniform options are too, because these are utterly laughable. And trust me, it hurts me trying to pay 1,800 crystals for the justification of Phil Coulson. Like, can't do it. Just, I really can't. So all right, let's take a look at what his uniform options are really quickly. So first up, what did we get inside there was Black Widow Golden Gate Vigilante. Not a bad uniform option, really can't complain about that one. It's her best uniform. I just, like, I don't think that there was a lot of players who really wanted to tier 4 Black Widow, and to be honest with you, I didn't. So like, I couldn't ping you for not having that uniform. Shit, trust me, it really hurts me that I used those 1,800 crystals for that. So then you get Thanos, Marvel Studios Avengers Endgame Thanos that was in there. Like, what the fuck? That is a terrible uniform option. Like, I mean, it is old, like 3 uniforms old. There's just not a whole lot of meat there for you to be like, this is, yeah. And the worst part about that uniform option too is that it's gonna cost you to purchase that uniform. Like, it's another really expensive uniform. So if you're really looking at your Phil Coulson and you're trying to basically get the benefits of the uniform, I don't see it. Like, I really don't. And so we went 2 for 2. So these are terrible uniform options. So let's go inside these right here. So then we can name more at the end. So Black Widow Golden Gate Vigilante, not necessarily a bad uniform option. It's her best uniform, so there's justifiableness in there. Eric Killmonger, Black Panther, Marvel Studios Black Panther. This is a terrible uniform option, absolutely ridiculous. Even worse about this uniform option, right, is that this character is essentially paywalled as well. So if you were to go try to level up this uniform, you need his BIOS in order to level up that uniform. Guess what? You're screwed. Like, that's a paywalled uniform. Like, it's terrible. So that's one paywalled uniform. Then you get Marvel Studios Avengers Endgame. Well, this is a really, really old uniform. It's my favorite uniform of his, to be perfectly honest. My favorite uniform of his in his long litany, but you've got 2 uniforms ahead of him at this point. To upgrade this uniform is going to cost your account heavily, not to mention just buying the uniform. It's going to cost you. So then we get Then we get Green Goblin. Not a bad uniform option at all for Green Goblin. His Red Goblin uniform, best uniform option. He is a very, very strong character in the game. I think he should have already received his tier 4. It'd have been nice to see that. And then you get Namor. Oh my God. So this is not a bad uniform. It's just that it's very expensive. So what I mean by that is, in order to level up this character, you're paywalled behind this character. So like, I want a uniform upgrade him. I need these bios. The only place for me to get those bios is 30x genes daily. So that means in order to level up this character, I've got to meet those needs for him. He's a free to play character in terms of like, you know, like he's easy to get to, but it's a good uniform for Namor as well. It's just, this makes Phil Coulson's uniform for a support type uniform very expensive. Like, he's not even a full-on support in realms that he's got a good leadership and a good support. So therefore, he's like a support god, like how Nick Fury's uniform was. This is like a very basic change of skills in terms of the character. And I just, for the life of me, cannot suggest that you purchase this for a 5% increase for basic damage to supervillains, a decreased basic damage. At this point, realistically, you're better off just T3ing him and just use him on your superheroes. Like, that's just the truth of it. You're better off just T3ing him, get him to tier 3, and then keep the previous, you know, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., agent of, you know, the AOS season 3 uniform, and just deal with that, because you're better off. Like, realistically, you're better off. I would just like skip this uniform completely. 100% skip. Don't even, like, there's no justification for that at all. I think Rogue, like I said, finish out the video really quick for you guys. I think Rogue is an easier sell to the audience. It's a very good looking uniform on her. We go mutants. She has viability inside here. Kitty Pryde was basically in there at tier 3. It was a trash uniform. I don't really see very many characters coming up behind her in terms of, like, it's a speed type mutant female. You can see the small list. I mean, you basically got Domino, who can basically come here at tier 4, and then Kitty Pryde, who could come behind her and probably supplant her. But for Rogue, this is a really good uniform in terms of just being like an upgrade for the character kit as she makes her way to tier 4. The skills and stuff like that on her look pretty decent. Great VFX. Like, you know, same thing with Phil. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong. It's like the VFX team is doing their job. They're definitely doing their job. Let's just blame the boys who are applying the skills, because that's the terrible part. It's just those guys, right? And then you got her tier 4 basically inside of there, and her tier 3 still looks amazing as hell to me. So easier justification 100% for Rogue. No justification whatsoever for Phil Coulson to basically sit at tier 4. I cannot believe they did this. This is sort of the reason why I'm trying to move to limited pay, to like not spending as much on the game, is because I have no clue what the direction of this game is going to be and what they plan on doing. And it's really hard to justify some of the moves that they're making in terms of what they're putting out for characters. For probably about the past like 4 months of the year, it has been total like snore fest on the character kits that they've basically put out. Like, when you talk about that, I am still most excited for the most exciting uniform that we've basically got. I hate to say this, if I go to my teams inside here, realistically, the most exciting uniform that we had got in terms of power upgrades, power outputs, or changing the meta in some shape, form, or way was Black Bolt. And that was over a year ago now at this point. That was the most exciting uniform change. Whoever created that needs to come back and figure out what they're doing with these uniforms. I was really excited about Loki. Loki wasn't as great as I was gonna hope that he was gonna be, but I T4'd him simply because he's one of my favorites. The only other excitement that I had in the year in terms of T4 uniforms, I was hoping for Doctor Strange to be really good. Didn't really hit as well as I wanted to. Same with Black Panther. didn't quite hit as what I want to was Miles Morales. He got that boost in terms of his uniform, and he got the boost in terms of his second uniform, and it was great overall, and I can't knock them for it. But when you look at what they've basically done over the course of the year, it ain't been nothing enthusiastic about it. And now we're getting uniforms that just look like optimizations to characters, and not even good optimizations if we looked at Phil Coulson. I really don't know. Like, I love the fact that Marvel Future Fight is not a gacha game, and I know that I can just basically pay for the characters I want and not pay for the characters I don't want, and I'm just paying for uniforms based on characters, and it's a good model in terms of it's not, you know, it's not 100% pay to play, and I like that. However, like, we've got to do better than what the systems that currently are inside here to engage. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.